This is the DRS.
We haven't heard that one in ages. I'm Peter Brook. I'm joined by Nedzo's F1 Gridbox and Ace Shield, and you're listening to the DRS Train podcast. So the Dutch Grand Prix yesterday, it served up something of a storm, even though the storms they predicted never actually came. I was pleasantly surprised, all things considered, and I don't know how you two think, but that's one of the best dry weather races we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it is. It takes me back, you said before the podcast, it took you back to about 10 years ago when you had actual mechanical problems and actual drivers making mistakes on their own in races. And it is kind of like that. It's taking us back to an era where cars were hard to drive and they were hard to even finish the races. And I enjoy it. I think that although you don't like to see things decided by factors outside of drivers' control, it would make it fun to see how harder cars to drive, how lower reliability rates would make things interesting and make it not just a procession every single time we know who's going to win the race under normal circumstances.
Yeah, I kinda thought it was a shame that almost everybody went for a one-stopper with their tire strategies. So basically, everybody pitted at the first safety car because it was the good thing for the strategy for the one-stopper, and then the second safety car came at the perfect time to put back the soft tires. And so I think it was just it standardized the strategy among almost every driver. You know, I can count on my hand the drivers who could do a different strategy. You know, there were Norris and Piastri, who could have done a two-stopper in the race. Max Verstappen, who saved up a set of soft tires in qualifying to use in the race, and that's the set he started with. And then there were the two Aston Martin drivers. Everybody else just had one set of mediums, one set of hards, and all the soft already used in quali. And so almost everybody went for the medium tire at the start except the two Haas's. And so we have basically 13 drivers who did the same strategy in the race. And I thought it was a shame because usually I watched the other day the German Grand Prix 2000, and it was far better, I think. But it's as you say, it's a different era, different way of racing, and it was much better.
Yeah, I mean, for a one-stop race, for most people, it ended up being very good, although a lot of that had nothing to do with the pit stops and just safety cars coming at very, very inconvenient times. And it was a very consequential race for a lot of drivers and just for the championship at large. And so on that point, I think we'll start with the winners, sort of, which were McLaren. Yeah, Piastri's bounced back well. That was a very tight qualifying, but he got pole and had his first Grand Slam. Is it ever, or his
I think so, yes.
first pole position for a long time? Controlled the race very comfortably from the front. Lando, well, until the engine blew, he was getting closer to Piastri, and maybe they would have been fighting for the win, but then that happened, and cue the meltdowns from teenage girls who've never seen a Formula One car break down before and think, oh, the title's ruined. And it's like, yeah, well, about 75% of every title has been ruined by that logic, if you want to blame it all on engine failure.
I think a good point to make about Piastri in the Netherlands is that last year, when the car, because obviously the McLaren by that point in the season had become the best car, and Norris wiped the floor with Verstappen, with Piastri as well, and now this season, Piastri has, as he has in a lot of on a lot of different circuits where he was weak last year, has shaped up and is now on the same level as Norris, if not slightly better. I think that had Norris caught up to him, I think we would have had a situation kind of like Hungary, where it's a hard track to overtake, and unless he was significantly faster by a tenth or two over the course of a lap, even then, I think he'd struggle to overtake because Zandvoort, we weren't seeing many DRS passes down the main straight. Like you saw Hadjar, he definitely wasn't quicker than guys like Leclerc, guys like Russell, especially in that first stint. But because he had the track position, he had the advantage, and I think that would have been a similar situation with Piastri and Norris. It was a good race, and I think Piastri did deserve it. I think that Norris would have deserved it had he got by. And yes, the mechanical failure now does set precedent for the rest of the season where, unless Piastri gets one as well, everyone's going to cry, or not everyone, Norris fans are going to cry about how it's not Piastri's title and it shouldn't be. It'll be the same discourse as 2016, where people will ignore Norris's personal faults and ignore his own mistakes and only focus on the one mechanical retirement. So yeah, well, unless you again, Peter said this before we went live. Unless Norris has an 18-point gap at the end of Abu Dhabi, he has no reason to complain.
Yeah, because I mean, there's been things doing the rounds on Twitter listing other problems he's had, mentioning things about battery issues and brake failures, and it's like that's all stuff that happened in qualifying or sprint races, which don't matter. So it's not. This is a actual retirement. So that makes a difference. Elsewhere, like he's had like 2 races this year where he's actually driven well. Everyone knows it's Piastri's title, and this is further reinforcing it. If that the lead he would have come out of this was a 16-point lead, and now it's gone up to 34 points, so that's more than a race win. So unless things do collapse on his end, he's kind of got this in the bag now.
It is still possible though. I've also seen, as well as the whole Norris fans crying, I've also seen people saying how actually Verstappen came back from X points back with a certain amount of races left. Vettel came back with like 25 points remaining in 2010 from within 2 races left. Raikkonen, what was the gap before China between Raikkonen and Alonso and Hamilton in 2007? Was it something like
17 points? I think Raikkonen has the largest percentage gap from the leader to still win the championship of anyone ever.
Exactly.
It's harder to measure because it's a different point system, though.
It's not impossible. If Norris just wins again, if Norris just wins 4 races in a row, he's instantly got that gap back. The gap that he lost by the retirement. Actually, no, it's 3 wins, isn't it? So as long as he can still shape up and win this title, that's what I'm trying to say. Especially if Piastri does get a mechanical fault, which it would balance it out in terms of quote unquote fairness, but we all know that it's unlikely. So I don't know. Maybe he needs to do his lawn mowing services that he did in Australia somewhere else.
It would be fair if Piastri gets a retirement out of second place, because if Piastri retires out of the lead, then Norris lost 18 points. Piastri would have lost 25, so that makes it Piastri got more unlucky. But
it's a 32-point gain because he moves from second to first and gains another 7 as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So the only way it would be, fair, is if he retires from second. I mean, people do this for 2016 all the time. Is like, okay, if you look at the raw numbers, then strictly speaking, yes, it was that mechanical failure in Malaysia that cost Hamilton the title. But elsewhere across the season, he made so many errors, and Rosberg himself had mechanical problems, not necessarily retirements.
Yes,
but he had problems with the gearbox. He had punctures. He had stuff that cost him points. They didn't necessarily mean he didn't finish the race. But it's like, so if you want to do a clean slate and take all that away, then on mistakes alone, Hamilton still loses that title. And you can play this game till the cows come home, and you can look at really extreme examples like 2005 with Kimi Raikkonen or whatever, or any season in the 1980s when the cars just did not work. And it's almost until 2023, because even 2022 to a degree was dictated by reliability because both drivers had problems at different points in the season. It plays a role everywhere, and it's only in the past 3 years that we've finally got engineers who know how to actually build a car that can run for 90 minutes without blowing up.
Anyway, my take on the race of the McLarens was that the first safety car was very unfortunate because it kind of locked both drivers onto the single stopper, because during the middle stint of the race before Norris retired, the McLaren's guys did not have the gap from the rest of the field to pit and still exit in front. And so they kind of were forced on a one stop, and I thought it was a shame because if that race had carried on without the safety car interventions, we would have seen a finish in which Piastri had to hold out the gap from Norris, who was going to pit again at the end and try to make up the gap and do the overtake on fresher tires. And I think that if it was the start of the year, up until Canada, I would have said, whatever, these 2 drivers cannot accomplish a normal race without making any mistakes. So even if we didn't see this with the safety car, they would have screwed up somehow. So it doesn't matter. But now, since Spain, I see that both drivers, Piastri and Norris, are doing very well, for a title battle. Since Spain, how many mistakes did they do? There was letting Max Verstappen win the sprint at Spa. There was uh, Norris getting a slow start in Hungary. There was what else? There
Well,
was nothing.
in terms of driver errors, well, there's Norris hitting Piastri in Canada, Piastri giving himself that 10-second penalty in Silverstone.
Spain
Yeah.
Spain was after Canada. Spain was after Canada. Was it?
Really? God, the season's
You're making me
Christ,
doubt.
it's too long. I mean, the season should have ended by now
Yes.
anyway, because we were what 16. I don't know. It's too
20
long.
years ago, this would have been the last race, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
what a way to end the season if that had been the last race as well.
So what I'm trying to say is that since Spain, assuming that Canada was before Spain, there haven't been any major mistakes by either driver. Maybe one underperformed on such a day, maybe the other got a poor start. There was Piastri at Silverstone getting that penalty. For I don't even remember for what. But this is all minor stuff. If you go look at other season, if you go look at 2016 between Hamilton and Rosberg, if you go look further back between Hakkinen and Schumacher, further back Prost and Senna, this level of mistakes, nothing major, but a lot of minor mistakes simply because these two drivers were so close to each other. Since Spain, Norris and Piastri have been resembling this kind of title battle, where every little mistake starts to matter, but neither is doing grave mistakes. Since Spain, at least. That's what I'm sensing. And so now I'm thinking it was kind of a shame not seeing the race play out normally at Zandvoort, because we would have seen again Piastri and Norris fighting at the last laps of a race for the win.
Yeah, I mean, we were denied that, but what we got was a lot more dramatic, I think. I mean, there's no reason for them to make mistakes because they're driving a rocket ship on rails that, until yesterday, didn't break down. It's the same like 1996. Again, they've got Hill and Villeneuve have got that rocket ship. You don't need to worry about Schumacher because he's driving the socks off that Ferrari, but the thing never bloody works. So it's like there's no stressors with this because nothing because if anything's going to go wrong, it's self-inflicted, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If there was a third driver involved, I think it would be interesting, especially if it was like a Verstappen, Leclerc, or Russell, who definitely is a better driver than Piastri or Norris. I think that would be interesting, but sadly, it's not really the case. So
no, and Verstappen I think he's mentally given up because he knows the title's gone. But yeah. Speaking of him, maybe we should move on to Red Bull because of course he finished second, couldn't quite win his home race. I mean, if he could have just crashed into Piastri after the second safety car, that would have been really handy because then Hadjar would have won. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, he did. I mean, he other than messing up the final sector, I think he possibly could have got pole in qualifying. The pace was not there because he did get ahead of Max. He tried to get. Well, he nearly lost it on the first lap, didn't he?
Yes.
On just before the banking. That banking caused a lot of problems at this race. I like it. Yeah, and then he did obviously like last year. Norris did eventually pass him, and then the gap just evaporated. Like he was within 5 laps, he built 8 or 9 seconds out on him. And it's like, yeah, this McLaren's you can't touch it. Beyond that, he didn't really do anything else. It was quite clean from him. And
I think Verstappen's weekend or Verstappen's race was basically like the dictionary definition of maximizing the weekend, pretty much. Like he did all he could with the package he had, and did not like you can't really pick out any major faults, and the ones you can like wobbling when you overtake someone. Oh no, it's a disaster. He still kept the position.
I mean, he could have so easily lost the car there.
Oh yeah, he could have done a Hamilton, except he crashed in front of the entire field, and Hadjar sneaks through and wins anyway.
Yeah, it's Spa 98, something like that. That would have been entertaining. But yeah, so he had for him, good polished race. Although everyone knows he's not getting that 5th title. Tsunoda, by his standards, had quite a good race.
Yes,
I mean he made it to Q2, so that's a victory in its own right. He was making passes at times. He got himself into the points, and it's like, okay, well that's your first point since Imola.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah, which is actually tragic because I think the only people below him in the standings are Doohan and Colapinto, and one of them isn't even racing anymore. That's how bad this is in the second fastest car on the grid.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, you've done something. Red Bull are still 4th in the constructors, but it's it's a start, but I don't think I don't think he's going to be in that seat next year. Doesn't look
I,
likely
I,
now.
I think his form at the moment is just okay because he's not like he's like half a second off of Verstappen in qualifying, which is about where Gasly, about where Albon, about where Perez were, and the gaps in the races. I haven't seen the gap in the race, but obviously with the safety car it will be slightly different. But in terms of lap times lost or lap time lost over the course of a lap on average, he's doing an okay job, and that's all he kind of needs to do. I do think that if Red Bull are going to go with a more neutral approach to the 2026 design, which I think they should, it's sensible to not design a car for Verstappen's preferences straight away, because if that design philosophy is terrible, then they're stuck with it. But I think that based on the performance of this year, especially with a new regulation set and with a new chance to turn over a new leaf in car design, I think that Hajjar's, unless he does something horrific in the last like third of the season, I think he's got that seat in the bag, to be frankly honest. I know that people have joked that he shouldn't go there. He definitely shouldn't go there this season because the car is terrible for the second driver. But I think that if that Red Bull is designed for both drivers next season, I think that Hajjar's in a perfect position. Because I thought in the past couple of races, his form had dipped quite a bit and Lawson was matching him. And he hadn't had the great, like, he started off as the best rookie and then he sort of tailed off. Behrman became better than him. I'm trying to think of other drivers. Antonelli definitely wasn't, but Lawson, as I said, was also stepping up, and now he's sort of got that grasp back on the situation again. So I think that Tsunoda's definitely got to watch out if they want to just keep him. I mean, if Tsunoda leaves Red Bull, I think he's leaving Formula One. But if he stays in that seat, I also wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be too shocked by it. But I think it'd just be a bit boring.
Verstappen is gonna go for every possible chance until the end of the year. You know, the idea this race was to start on soft, overtake one of the McLarens, and then hope they do a one-stopper so he can do a two-stopper and maybe overtake the other and win. You know, it didn't work out because we know what happened. So, but yeah, Verstappen understands that what he has to do from now until the end of the year is just YOLO the strategy and hope for a win.
I think what he's essentially going to do is in every single race, he's just going to throw shit at the wall until it sticks and just try the aggressive until it works.
The HRT approach, not that anyone noticed except me, that was what they would do. Yeah, because now he's got nothing to lose. It's like, well, I've lost the drivers. Thanks to my teammate, we've lost the constructors as well. So let's just have some fun and see if anything works. And Tsunoda, I mean, Tsunoda, it was better, but it's still well below par. And so maybe there is good reason next year to replace him with the next driver, because Racing Bulls had another race of two halves. So something that drives me nuts, and this has been going on for years now, is when the midfield scragglers that make it into Q3 don't set proper lap times. I mean, Fernando Alonso is the king of this. When they get to Q3, and it's like, because it's like, oh, we're not going to be at the front, so why bother? And it's like, well, Hajjar proved why you should, because he put that thing in fourth, and Tsunoda, like, Lawson was what, 8th or 9th or something, and almost all of them had set. Yeah, he was 8th, and like his Q2 lap time was like 3 or 4 tenths faster than Q3. So this is why you should try, and also it gives us actually a proper representative example of the qualifying pace. And yeah, because on a circuit like this, it's like Monaco. It really does matter, because even with all the chaos that happens, the front four maintained position throughout the whole race.
Yes.
And he was just sit there, quietly. There's that meme of the guy just eating a sandwich while there's people having a punch up on the table next to him. He's just cruising around in fourth, and it's all kicking off behind him with Mercedes and Ferrari. And then Lando dies, and we get our first Arab podium, if George Russell doesn't count.
Oh, Jesus Christ! This is I would say it's our first French podium, but I realised that Gasly and Ocon exist,
and
but
lots of other French drivers as well.
It's the first Racing Bulls / VCarb / Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri podium since Gasly's win.
Yeah, since 5 years ago. First French podium.
Baku 2021. Gasly won Italy 2020, but then got on the podium again at Baku 2021 when Hamilton went straight.
Yes.
Because Ocon, this last year there were a couple. Oh no, it was Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo last year was the last French podium. Yeah, so yeah, there's all that. Yeah,
Hard car.
first. Also, well, the thing is, they're both Algerian as well, aren't they? Him and Ocon. So he
Yes.
can't even claim that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did everything he needs to do, and it's so annoying because it's like he needs to go to Red Bull, but then it's like, no, that's going to ruin his career.
Yes.
It's just like just get away from them and go somewhere better, because he has been the surprise. If you think how it started, how it's going with him crashing on the formation lap in Australia,
Yeah.
and now he's the first rookie to get a podium this year as
Mhm.
well, while all the others are just kind of collapsing like a house of cards.
Well, he's not the first
It's
to get a podium this year. Antonelli is.
Oh, Antonelli did, yeah, okay. He's been
But he's
useless
in a
since
better
then, so I
car.
forgot. Yeah, he is. He's in a car that's actually worthy of podiums.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, he could go, I don't know where, but somewhere that isn't Red Bull, because he's
Audi.
just been. He's not a generational talent, but it's like this is going reasonably well, considering that his how much of a car crash his junior career was, and him just being an incessant moaner, which I guess they've taught him not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's he's definitely rookie of the year at the moment.
I mean, I disagree with that, but yeah, yeah. And Lawson just existed. I don't. Where did he even finish?
Well, he finished. Okay.
12.
He salvaged 12th, considering that he gave himself that puncture, and then
Oh
Sainz
yeah.
got penalised for it. Up until
I
then, it
didn't
was
even see that
okay.
incident because I wasn't looking at the TV at the time. But yeah.
Wasn't I think he was just in. Well, he was 8th when that happened, or no, he was 7th. When Sainz tried to take the position, and it's like, okay, so you were P7. Considering what happened in front of you, that could have been a P5
Yeah.
after, if he just held steady. Like P3 and P5 for AlphaTauri, that's going to be their best collective result ever, probably. As even better than Minardi as well.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, and he squandered that, but then he didn't get the penalty. But even so, just about salvaged 12th place because they were allowed to unlap each other in
Yes.
that second safety car. But yeah, not his best, even though he has been getting into a rhythm in the past few races.
Well, actually, the best ever result still is Italy 2020, because Gasly wins, and that's 25 points, and then Kvyat finished 9th, so that's 27 points,
27,
and instead a third and a fifth still make 25 points.
25. Yeah, so it's not
So
quite there, but it's, yeah.
second best result ever for the team.
It's
It
close.
would have
It's in
been
the
a
same,
third
like
and a fifth place.
Minardi's best ever was collective. I think was 5th and 6th. Silverstone 1988, 89,
Yeah.
88 or
Perez, Salah,
89.
and Martini, I think.
Yeah. And then the others, all the other 10,000 names they've gone through. But
Actually,
yeah. I mean, Toro actual because
so
actual Toro Rosso
race
would have been.
classification 8, 15, 23. No, not yet. I looked at Hockenheim 2019 when Kvyat got the podium, and Albon was 6th, so that's 23 points. So it
Yeah.
would not have.
It's not quite, but yeah, it would have been a great day for them, and it was, yes, squandered slightly by him, but also because the midfield battle is really close, because this has put them. I think they're only about 7 or 8 points behind Aston Martin, and Aston Martin are closing
They're-
in on Williams as well. 2 points, yeah, that's the thing. Everyone except Alpine is really close in the midfield fight, so it's kind of depressing that once again it's like, oh, the midfield fight's really close. So we've been saying that every season for the past 10 years now, but that's good. At least there isn't really 3 tiers of car, unless you consider the Alpines to be their own backmarker thing. It is very much, when you look at the points, it is very much a season of 2 halves, comparing the top 4 to the bottom 6, though.
Yeah.
But that at least means that there's always going to be at least 2 midfielders that make Q3, and get points. So that's keeping it fresh.
Who's next?
You both said about the qualifying. I mean, Peter, you pointed out how so many drivers didn't improve. I read some of the statements after qualifying, and so many were saying in Q3 the wind picked up, and so it made everything harder. And so there was Andrea Stella saying that, there was Alonso and Sainz claiming the wind changed and so made things harder, and also Ajar, who made P4, said something about the wind changing, and he thinks he got lucky that none of these sudden changes and gusts was in an inappropriate moment. And so he thinks he got lucky with getting the lap,
I
because
mean,
the wind didn't disrupt him.
The top 5 drivers in Q3 all improved their times. It was the bottom 5 that didn't. I don't know how much difference it would have made. Leclerc would have been the same. Lewis would have been ahead of Charles if on his Q3 time. Lawson would have moved up to would have stayed place. Sainz stayed. Alonso would have gone up to 8th. So there would have been a little bit of move around, I guess, but not huge. But in the past, because the gaps were bigger, the intervals were often bigger. Like suddenly having 1st to 10th is like a second and a half apart, when 1st to 20th in Q1 was a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, that was a good race, and obviously driver of the day, great day for him. Everyone got very excited when Norris's engine blew, and it's like suddenly we have a Hadjar podium, yay! After them was Mercedes.
Russell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another race of two halves. So George was just behind because again the pace is not there for wins or anything. Interesting battle with Leclerc. I'm kind of glad they didn't penalise anyone, but it could be because Leclerc crashed out, so that's his penalty, I suppose. Because I saw that and he was off the track, and it was a bit Dijon 79, and I was like, can you please for once just let them fucking race and not penalise them for driving like it's a go-kart thing or whatever. Just have some fun for once in your life.
Yeah.
So that was nice to see them battling hard again, because we've seen a lot of battles with George and Charles before. So he did well, and he got 4th out of it. I mean, I'm glad he didn't pass Hadjar at the end. But yeah, Antonelli though, yeah. Just before that crash, I was thinking, oh, he's kept it. We're getting points for the first time in 10,000 races, and it's going well. And then he just decides to take out Charles and gets the penalty. And then he was in the points, and then he gets the 10-second penalty just before the safety car's like, okay, so now he's not out of the points. And it's the dream is starting to go like the kind of Twinkie il predestinato is not really happening anymore. And I'm wondering if he'll get dropped next year or demoted. One possible option might be put him in the Williams, and put Sainz in the Mercedes for shits and gigs. I don't know, because I can see how they're thinking this is just not that he's just too inexperienced at this point.
I mean, Williams have said previously, James Vowles has said they don't want to become the Mercedes B team again. So I think that might be off the table. To be honest, I mean, unless Mercedes are fighting for titles, which they might be next year with their engine performance, I don't think it's a particularly terrible thing, because the worst they're going to finish in this season is 4th, and even then, I think they are easily still in contention for 2nd with Ferrari, because Ferrari are Ferrari, so it's not the end of the world. I think that if they are solidly 2nd or solidly 3rd or solidly 4th next year, I don't think it'll be a massive effect if Antonelli is crashing out or making mistakes in races. But yeah, he just needs to get on top of it. As long as he can get consistent finishes inside the points, I think he should be all right. But yeah,
he hasn't had a clean weekend since Canada now. Something is going wrong every time, and it's annoying.
Yes. Yeah, he just needs to. It's a mix of him needing to buckle up and a mix of his engines and his cars needing to buckle up. I did see that a lot of people were going at Jacques Villeneuve because he said that he wasn't ready, and that maybe he was promoted a bit too early, and all that sort of stuff. And then I think it was Simon Lazenby said that, oh well, look at because they were talking about his age and stuff, and he was saying, well, Verstappen was just as hot headed at this age, and Villeneuve said, well, no, Verstappen was also on the same pace as his teammates at that age, and I think that's the point he was trying to get across. So
I mean, in 2015, Verstappen didn't really make any mistakes other than Monaco. There weren't any real mistakes that year.
Yeah,
from him.
I do kind of. I think that it's not horrendous. The gap between Kimi and George is. I'm not actually sure. I'd have to check how Kimi's gaps against George compared to Lewis's gaps against George last year.
Yeah, because he was out in Q2 again, and that keeps happening too much as well.
Yes, but I don't think it's a write-off so far this season, especially if he does well. He's got his home race coming next week. He's got this week technically. He's got a lot of stuff coming up where he could pull something out of the bag. He just needs one or two good results to give him the confidence to go on with other things. And I don't think demoting him to another team for the sake of a couple of points would really do him the best benefit.
Yeah, it just seems like if he was in the Williams, there'd be nothing wrong with what he's doing because Williams suck. But like because it's Mercedes and they have high expectations, it's like he's not really meeting them.
Williams has Sainz, who he's having a horrible season, for more or less his mistakes. Sometimes he just gets screwed over by the car, by reliability, by safety car, by Lawson. And then, this was the one race Sainz was ahead and got screwed over, but nobody's really talking about it. Antonelli has had several races screwed up by the car, by reliability. Spain and Imola, he was fairly close to his teammate, and that just nothing. This one again was a race. He was fairly close to his teammate, even though he started far behind. Russell got the damage from Leclerc, and then he was ordered to let Antonelli pass. And Antonelli saw that, and Antonelli thought, I have to take revenge for the team. And so just planted Leclerc into the wall. And so Russell kept the fourth place. I think it's very funny to read that situation in this way. But yeah, it's really, even I'm getting kind of baffled by how many mistakes he's making, aside from being out in Q2, but not by a big margin, but still, you shouldn't be out. But then he lost the entire free practice 1 because he had understeer, and now he made this stupid mistake with Leclerc because I think it was obvious, a few laps prior, Alonso tried the same move in the inside of the banking, and he just backed out, he didn't fully commit to it. Antonelli fully committed to it, and then just crashed into Leclerc. And then even the team, I think, wasn't really on top of the situation because when the last safety car came out, he had, I think it was 13 seconds from the car behind. They should have pitted him, served the 15 seconds penalty, and get him out again on new soft tires if possible. I'm not really sure how that works. But he serves those 15 seconds and then has a few laps to overtake a few cars. And maybe in that process, he doesn't even exit the pits in last place. He could have still had a shot at scoring points, but they didn't pit him, so he finished penultimate, only ahead of Gasly, who ran a horrible strategy, but Alpine are just YOLOing.
It is. I think it is mostly just lack of experience because they gave him as much testing as they could, but his Formula 2 campaign was risky to skip Formula 3. Formula 2, it was touch and go in terms of what was going on that season, but then you get all that pass at Eau Rouge shaggers coming out of the woodworks and whatnot. It's
Prema last year had Berman and Antonelli, and they kind of were doing something. Prema was clearly in a bad place as a team in getting the car up to speed. But they didn't look as tragic as they're doing this year in Formula 2. This year is even worse. So you're kind of thinking, yeah, maybe Formula 2 last year was far better from Berman and Antonelli because now they left and the team is even worse off.
I can't even remember who's driving for them because
Montoya and someone else. I don't even know.
Montoya, the one who's claiming
Yeah.
he's better than everyone when it's all people that shat all over him and all the lower seats.
Yeah.
I don't, because in the space of 2 years, F2 has gone from being better than Formula 1 to being just the most illegitimate sport ever made. I just can't. Yeah, it's so hard. I try to watch it, but it's just so hard to care because it's a Mechachrome championship. It just doesn't. Yeah, and also they have these enormous gaps between races, and there's going to be more later on because every single Middle Eastern race has to be on there, and we can't have all the good ones, so we have to have huge gaps. But with Antonelli as well, it's just that he did win all those titles in Freca and the regional stuff and whatnot, but they were the middest of grids. So it's kind of no surprise that he was cruising to wins in a lot of it as well. It's just and you can say, well, Max was inexperienced. Like, yeah, he had only 1 year of single seaters, but also he's Max, and he was having to fight Ocon and whatnot in that European F3 campaign and whatnot, and probably had the constant threat of corporal punishment from Daddy as well if he didn't succeed or something. Whereas Antonelli has been very, very coddled and protected, even if he's had with access to the same kind of privileges and money with his racing. But yeah, it's just experience, and it'll come with time, I think. Williams. Okay, so we covered them a little bit. Well, Albon, that was a fairly quiet thing. I mean, he was complaining after getting knocked out in Q2 and being 15th. Had a very good start. He gained 5 positions on the first lap, I think.
Yeah.
Beyond that, he just kept it on the straight and narrow. Sainz, tried that move, got hit by what's his face, gets the penalty. And likewise, everyone's like, why does he get that penalty? It was also annoying because this is with the collision. Was it George and it was either Charles and George or Charles and Kimmy, where they were like, this is going to be investigated after the race. It's like, why do you need to wait that long? You have all the data and all the replays and everything. So is it just because there wasn't an obvious crash that it's a problem or damage that we can't just work it out from that? But in this case, I think what they've done, unless they've used some really shit AI to work it out, is they're like, oh, well, Lawson got the puncture, so that means it was Sainz's fault. It's like, or maybe he just gave it to himself. If you actually look at the replays and the onboards and see that Sainz is on the outside and Lawson's just cutting across him, he's doing a bit of a Vettel, dare I say, and giving himself a puncture. Like, it wasn't Sainz's fault.
Look, all I'm saying about that incident is that there was a driver on the inside and a driver on the outside behind, and then the driver on the outside kind of turned into the driver in the inside, and the driver on the outside got the penalty yesterday. In 2016 in Austria, there was a similar incident between two drivers where at turn 3, there was a driver on the inside who braked very, very late and just kind of went straight. And then the driver on the outside turned into him. And that time, the penalty went to the driver on the inside. So I guess the difference that one was named Hamilton and the other was named Sainz.
Wasn't
You know, I look, I perfectly understand that the situation was different. You know, Rosberg wasn't turning and Lawson instead was turning, even though was kind of pushing Sainz out. But yes, one time Rosberg got a penalty because he was turned into, and instead now they give the penalty to the guy who turns into the other. I just, I really don't agree with that penalty.
Austria? Okay, that one. Hamilton. Yeah, I didn't think Lewis got a penalty in that one because he won the race.
No,
No, he
no,
didn't for
Rosberg
Rosberg.
got the penalty.
Yeah, Rosberg got the penalty. I thought that was more because he went off the
Yes.
track and came back on and hit him, and then took his wing off. So, okay, wasn't Rosberg on the outside and turned in and hit him?
No,
Or-
Rosberg
No,
was on the
it was
inside.
Hamilton on the outside.
Hamilton on the outside, Rosberg brake late to defend, Hamilton turns in on Rosberg.
But also Rosberg completely missed the apex.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did a Lewis Silverstone 21. Oh god, people were debating that one for years after it happened.
Yes.
But this one is not. Well, the thing is, this one is so much. I mean, Sainz didn't. He was right on the outside. There wasn't really anywhere else to go, and it was just maybe Liam was just misjudging a bit because you see him come right across and obviously just clips the wing, but it's not. There's nowhere else for Sainz to go in that, and it's not a 10-second penalty, even if you say that one of them is at fault. It's just a puncture, like, and that alone is they're already penalised by the fact that they ended up getting lapped because of that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it really felt like a racing incident, the incident yesterday, and then they decided to penalize Sainz. And then there was, I just said that there was an incident 9 years ago, which I think, with my memory, is the only one I can kind of compare to the incident of yesterday. You know, in that incident 9 years ago, they decided to give the penalty to the driver in the inside. So yeah, I think it's just FIA being widely inconsistent. You know, 2 racing incidents that did not deserve penalty, and instead they penalized in opposite ways.
But yeah, it's never consistent. And I mentioned that they said with George and Charles, we'll investigate it after the race. It's like, well, you're just being lazy. And also, everyone hates that because it means you have to wait ages to get the actual official result. And this is the problem again F2 and F3 have, because it's impossible to go one race without someone getting a post-race penalty or disqualification for really nebulous reasons as well. And no other sport penalizes people. I mean, there have been races in like the really low formulas, like fucking Danish F4 or Euro Cup 3, one of the ones that doesn't matter, where every single driver gets disqualified or something, and it's like there's no point. Just cancel the bloody race or just write it off at that point. If it doesn't matter what you actually get the results at the end. It should be obvious to anyone if something is or isn't a penalty, and you should be able to decide very quickly instead of like 4 hours after a race, unless it's a technical infringement, because that's different. Yeah. Then
Yeah,
it
about
is.
Albon, just had a very lucky race because, as you both said, he got a very good start, and I think the key point was he stayed ahead of Tsunoda, and Tsunoda on the soft tire started to be like a blockage for every guy behind.
Cork in the bottle.
And so
Yeah.
Albon just opened up a gap from Tsunoda, and that made the entire difference throughout the race because the blockage that Tsunoda created after the safety car kinda led to Stroll being the blockage. And then after the safety car, it was Gasly being the blockage. And just Albon being ahead Tsunoda in the first stint had this effect on all the successive stints in which he just stayed out of trouble, and everybody ahead just kind of took each other out, and he kind of ended up with a P5. He had a very lucky race, I think, Albon, but it was all pinging on getting that very good start. If he did not get that good start, it would have been completely a different race. So kudos to Albon for the start. It made all the difference.
So next up we have Haas. Nedzo, Bear Boy, go.
Yeah, so he comes from the pit lane to his best career finish, better than what he did in a Ferrari. And yeah, I mean, obviously both Hasses were going on a very audacious. They both started on the hards, and Behrman basically, I think, was a second safety car came at the perfect time, so he managed to go onto another set of tires and eventually finish P6. Unfortunately for Ocon, I think that Ocon had pitted just before the safety car came out, and so he was slightly behind, and so he ended up finishing 10th. But I think, although Ollie's strategy was perfect, obviously, first of all, he had to counter off a lot of the bad luck he's had this season, all of his 11th place finishes, and all of his just general misfortune. But yeah, this was a good race from him. Again, it was a bit of a nothing burger, but you still have to. You can't just get from the pit lane to 6th place via strategy. It's not possible. He did a good job, and I think that's what we need to say. And then Ocon, yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if Ocon was the driver who was ahead before the safety car or before he made that pit stop. But if he was, then maybe it could have been a P6, P7. Even if he wasn't, it could have been P6, P7, just the other way around.
He was ahead until the second safety car, Ocon, because he stayed out in the first one.
Was giving the
then,
slipstream and the DRS to Berman to defend from Tsunoda and Alonso.
And then he pitted in the second one, but was able to make gains, and so it meant that they have their first, unless you count the Spa Sprint, their first double points. It's Bahrain, so that's quite a long time ago. But yeah, because Behrman's starting from the pit lane, didn't he get another penalty in qualifying or something? Or
I think he decided to change his gearbox because he was starting from 19th.
Oh, okay. So yeah, well, it worked out anyway. But yeah. So that was a good one for them because it has been kind of touch and go, and that's Behrman's first points again since Bahrain. So yeah, I mean 4 consecutive 11th place finishes, and it ties his best result of that 6th with Ferrari last year.
He got 7th in Saudi Arabia, not 6th.
Oh, it is the best then. Okay, yeah, got the 7th. Fair dues. So yeah, not bad. And again, it keeps the midfield nice and close. Next, Aston Martin. That was a topsy turvy one. I was not trying to work out who was going where. I mean, Alonso, the safety car seemed to come at the wrong time, and then Alonso was like, "I'm going to pit for softs," and it's like, "Oh wait, I'm stuck in a DRS train, and I've screwed this up." And then did he still end up? No, he was behind Stroll at the end, but it was going all. I don't know. It was they were out of sync with everyone else. It's too confusing. I mean, obviously Ace will know all about it.
Yes, the point was that Aston Martin was one of the few teams with McLaren and Red Bull with Verstappen to try to do the two-stopper in the race. And so Stroll was starting last. After 10 laps, they just pitted him because he lost nothing. And 10 laps later, he was so fast on new tires that then Tsunoda, who was being a blockage, that he just reached back the entire queue again. And that meant when the safety car came out for the first time, all these drivers behind Tsunoda had to pit. Suddenly Stroll is ahead of this entire queue in the second stint, and then he got to pit again because he had another set of tires at the last safety car. Just the strategy, just like Berman, it worked out so well, the strategy for Stroll. Just one tiny bit, Stroll actually pitted on the same lap as Ocon. And Ocon lost out immensely because the lap after everybody got to pit under safety car. So Ocon lost out. What happened with Stroll is that he had a bit of a gap from Ocon and Berman before the safety car. So let's say 6 seconds. Yes, when he pitted, he did the full time loss, which was 17 seconds. And then under safety car, it was everybody gained basically 9 seconds because of the shortened loss of time in the pit lane. But since Stroll had this 6 seconds gap, he basically lost just a few positions. He lost out to Gasly and a few other drivers. I think also, yeah, I don't remember the order before the final safety car. But yeah, he lost out very little, and then he had new tires, so made up a lot of places. He really only lost out to Berman at the end, because he was running ahead of Berman before the safety car. But it kind of worked out for Stroll. Instead for Alonso, it was completely different because he pitted the first time just before the safety car. So all the guys he was trying to undercut, they got the free pit stop, and he was back where he started, And then he made the call to pit again to try an undercut. He was going through the DRS trains. He overtook Hülkenberg, then he overtook Bortoleto, then overtook Colapinto, and just as he was going to overtake Gasly, safety car came out. And that made all the difference because then everybody else had tires 10 laps, 12 laps younger than Alonso's, and then he kind of didn't immediately overtake Gasly. So Berman and Stroll on new tires came from behind and overtook Alonso. And so, it just didn't work out the race for Fernando. It should have been much different. But Fernando is also kind of at fault because he got a poor start. He tried to block Antonelli into turn 3 at the banking, and then it became a mess and lost out places to Albon and Tsunoda too. And so he was the guy behind Tsunoda, and that made all the difference because, as I said, Albon was ahead of Tsunoda and got a very clear race. Alonso behind Tsunoda got screwed over. So, it's not only a misfortune. Alonso has some faults into this performance, but definitely did not get lucky with the safety cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a complex one because it just everything was out of sync, like you said, because
Yes.
Alonso pitted just before the safety car and then he pitted
Yes,
again.
but everybody was out of sync. Alpine was going for the YOLO strategies. Colapinto started on soft tires, and Gasly instead just went so long. And then there was Tsunoda just being there. He shouldn't be there, but he was. Then there was the Haas who started on the hard tires, so they were on the opposite strategy. And then there were Hülkenberg and Bortoleto doing.
Well, this is what you want,
mess.
especially if they're all going to do a fucking one stop. At least start on different tires. Like, yeah, we need more races where everyone's starting on all three. Or Monaco 22. We had all 5 tire compounds until they decided, no, there's rain coming, so let's wait for the rain and ruin everything. Yeah, but that all things considered, that I mean, because Alonso had a crap start as well and lost like 3 positions or whatever. That went by their standards reasonably well. I mean, they're hanging on in their midfield battle to get their first double points since Austria. No, not Austria. Since since last time Hungary. Yeah. The car's improved clearly quite considerably. So that's that. They'll probably overtake Williams by the end of the season at this rate and salvage 5th place. Next is Alpine. We saw basically nothing of them until right at the end because Colapinto has been completely invisible since he's come back, except when he's crashing. I mean, we saw just after Hungary, he crashed and totaled the new experimental car for next year for testing the new tyres or something else and totaled that in the test at Hungary. In this race, though, they did team orders at the end, and Gasly, they were like, swap with him. And then I think Gasly was like, okay, I'll swap with everyone and finish last because he just plummeted in the last couple of laps. And then Colapinto was 11th. But otherwise, we saw they didn't really do anything because the car doesn't have the pace and the team don't know what they're doing. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
just a bit funny at the end.
Yeah. I think there's not really much to say about them. I mean, Ace will probably have some
Yes.
elaborate strategy call, but yeah, I can't say anything about them other than I mean, you could say Colapinto, I suppose, has kind of resurrected some faith. Like previously, he's anonymous, but he's anonymous and finishing in the highest place he's got all season. So yeah,
Mm.
Colapinto could have scored yesterday. Do you know that? Yeah,
okay,
at the last stint, there was Gasly, as you said, being just falling back. Well, if Gasly had kinda blocked Ocon and let Colapinto through, Colapinto would have finished 10th instead of 11th, and so would have scored a point for the team. But that didn't happen. Actually, Gasly fought Colapinto very hard, so it didn't work out. But
Mm.
the race strategy was, as I said, Alpine just YOLO the strategy. You know, Colapinto started on the soft tire. They gave team orders to Gasly to let him pass, but then just like Tsunoda, the tires wore out very fast, and they had to pit him again. And so Gasly was back where he was, stuck in the queue behind Tsunoda. And then soon after, there was a safety car. And so they just did what everyone else did, put on the hard tires and try to go to the end. And so nothing again happened because once more they were in a DRS train stuck there. And so when the last safety car came out, they split the strategy. They pitted Colapinto for soft tires. He had new soft tires, Colapinto. And instead, Gasly was left out on 41 laps old hard tires. You know, and that worked out as well as you could have expected. He lost out position to Berman, then to Stroll, then to Alonso, then Tsunoda, Ocon, Colapinto, and then lost out a bunch of places in one go to everybody and to both Saubers. And
In
so he
10
finished
laps,
last.
yeah, in 10
Yes,
laps he went from 8th to 18th because
yes.
he kind of held
It-
on. The thing is, we didn't see any of this. We just saw the thing of team orders let him pass thing because yeah, he was up to 8th, and then 63 he's passed by Behrman and Stroll, and then right at the end of that VSC, or was there a third safety car? Was that VSC at the right near the end for Lando?
no, it was a safety car for
Oh, so
Lando.
there were 3 safety cars then. Yeah, so then it was at the end of the third safety car, he gets passed by everybody. Yeah, I mean, he lost 4 positions in 1 lap. So yeah,
he's doing the Raikkonen 2012 China strategy of losing positions.
just a bit slower than Raikkonen, but yeah, that
Yeah,
just did. I mean, it's like, why would you split? That's a position where you don't need to split, and it's like it's a safety car, so you could double stack, and we won't lose an hour lot of time, especially if you're never going to score points anyway. So why not? Yeah, so whatever. Alpine. Kick Sauber. Goodness me, for once we have nothing to say. Like
yeah. Can we just skip
Bortoleto
straight on?
had a shit start and lost what? He lost 5 positions before he even crossed the start line, basically. And then they're
Mm.
just chilling, doing nothing, and every other team is doing everything they can to make sure they're not last. Whether it be giving each other punches or having useless strategies. And yeah, they didn't qualify well, and they didn't. I mean, 13th and 17th, and then they went and finished 14th and 15th. So they just did. They went back to the old kick Sauber.
I think the only thing we can really take away from this race for Sauber is that Bortoleto is quite good, and that he's starting to. Was he the one who was 13th in qualifying?
Yeah, and then he was 18th by the time they got to turn 1.
Yeah, I mean,
So
but I mean, he's clearly got good qualifying pace. I mean, both of them need to improve on their consistency. Hulkenberg, especially so in qualifying, but it is quite.
yeah,
But there's nothing to talk about there. I think we should move on to the next team unless Ace
they
has
just
something
didn't.
to.
What is?
No, there is nothing to say. You know, the midfield is so close. And at
Mm,
Zandvoort, it was Williams, Racing Bull, and Aston Martin having the edge. You know, that's it. You know,
yeah,
they had the edge so that they fought for the points. You know, and then the other 3 teams just YOLO the strategy. You know, Haas got lucky by YOLOing their strategy. Alpine got less lucky by YOLOing their strategy. And Sauber tried to YOLO the strategy and they lost out worse on the other 3. So.
mm,
I think
So
he's
you
proved
know
that.
that's just what happens when the midfield is so close, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that just
Well,
proves how good Behrman is and how he's a goat.
mm. So yeah, the last team to cover, one everyone's been talking about, Ferrari. Mamma mia. That was fun. So they in practice their pace was nowhere. In qualifying, it looks shit, and then it looks like they're going to go out in Q2. Both of them scrape into Q3 and actually do reasonably well to be fifth and sixth or something. Not bad. And then yeah, in the race the pace is fine, and then Lewis crashes, and this is only the fourth time in his entire career that he's crashed out by himself. So it's been literally China 2007, which wasn't really a crash, so to speak, but it's close enough. I mean, it was a
It's
crash in terms
retirement.
of what it did for the championship. Monza 2009 was definitely a crash, although that wasn't a retirement because it was on the last lap, so he was still classified. And then 15 years later, Kota last year, and again that wasn't a crash; that was him beaching it in the gravel. So this is
Bit of a
only
shock.
this is only the second like unenforced solo contact with the barriers that we've had in a race. And he said that because he said he just caught the paint on the banking and lost the rear end. The thing is, on the onboard, I was here thinking, how did he not save that? Because he wasn't going that fast,
Yeah.
and like it wasn't. Yeah, it
Did
just
he
didn't
overcorrect?
turn. Maybe it just wasn't like it just didn't turn.
You
It was
know,
like yeah,
what I think happened is that he lost the car and then kind of recovered it and just kept the foot on the gas to not lose time. And so he was further out the turn than everybody usually is. You know, and at the end of the turn, out of turn 3, there is a marshal post where drivers can park their cars, and there's their opening where the marshal just,
yeah,
and to have that opening, the barriers kind of turned close to the circuit. You know,
yes,
Hamilton was halfway through the turn and was very wide out, kept the foot on the gas, and suddenly the barriers got far closer to the track than he was expecting, and he couldn't turn anymore because it was already flat out. You know, I think that's what happened with the incident. He didn't really quite lose the car, he just
So
lost the car, caught it, then got unexpected that the barriers turned toward the circuit because no driver is ever so far wide to really notice that. You know, I think that's what happened.
so basically, what it was Senna Dallas 1984. Only this time the barrier didn't move.
Yes.
Is kind of um yeah, but yeah, that's quite a rare unenforced error. That's his first retirement for Ferrari. He's still on course to be the first driver ever, would it be, to never get a podium in their debut season with Ferrari, unless
It
Metzario?
would
people that did full seasons. Ivan Capelli did he? Well,
No,
he
he
didn't. He
didn't.
didn't technically do a full season because he got fired with 2 races. I've seen a stat like that about or that he's gone the longest, or maybe everyone's assuming he's going to get a podium, and it's like, well, he'll have gone the most races without one. When he gets one, it's like,
Did
yeah, if he
Stefan
gets one.
Johansson in 1987 get one?
Well, he was at McLaren in 1987, so
Whichever season, because he was at Ferrari one year and then at McLaren the next year. Which one am I thinking of?
it was
1986,
85 and 86, and he definitely got podiums. He nearly won a couple of races with them.
Let me think.
It was impossible not to get podiums back then because everyone else. There were like 2 drivers that finished every race.
I'm trying to think of full-time drivers at Ferrari. Give me a second.
There will be examples of this, but it was something to do with that, and I think people were just listing all the other drivers on the grid who have driven for Ferrari already had podiums at this point in their time with them.
I heard a stat kind of different, but still about Hamilton and Ferrari. Every driver who was already a world champion who joined Ferrari always won a race on their debut. You know, and there's like 6 drivers before Hamilton. There's Fangio, uh, there's Prost, there's Schumacher, Alonso, Vettel, and I think I skipped over Ascari. No,
Mansell won his first race with just like Alonso did.
But he wasn't a champion by that point.
What wasn't a
yes,
champion? Oh, I
yes.
see.
So anyway, all
Yeah.
these drivers I listed, they got 3 wins and several podiums on their debut season with Ferrari. And then there is Hamilton, who joined Ferrari as a world champion. And not only has he not won, he has not even scored a podium. And so that right now, if it persists until the end of the year, would be a record.
It'd be also very funny, but we'll gloss over that.
Yeah, it's just it's not. I think when everyone was like, that they were just kind of creaming themselves over the possibility of Adrian Newey also joining him there. and having that and having Vasseur, because it's like, yeah, they know each other because they did GP2 together nearly 20 years ago, but otherwise there's not much else going on with it. But this, it's, I mean, he looked so dejected after Hungary, where he finished outside the points, and Leclerc had got a podium and then got a pole position and then had the full Ferrari experience in the race. And unless he has assurances that the car will be good next year, well, the thing is, even if it's good, the team won't be. Maybe
Yeah.
he will just think about retiring, because it's like, it's going, at this point, it's almost going worse than the Mercedes last year. I mean, the qualifying is better.
It is going
He's
worse.
already going worse.
Yes.
I mean, the qualifying is better. He's not getting knocked out in Q1 and Q2 nearly as often. But the races, and he's not beating Charles ever, except Silverstone. And I mean, Silverstone, that was also his worst result at Silverstone since like 2009, to finish 4th or whatever.
Yeah.
So
And
maybe he will. Maybe he
Yeah.
will throw the towel in at the end of the
And
year.
that's even as we've seen with drivers who are coming towards the end of their career, you still, like for example Nigel Mansell in 1994, we saw glimpses of great performances. Even Schumacher in his comeback wasn't as bad as people thought it was, but we saw glimpses of greatness in that comeback. Lewis this year, aside from one sprint race where it was all about track position, nothing.
And he
There's
left at
nothing.
the front, yeah. But
There's
also,
very
even since 2022, the two wins he got had to be force fed to him, and
yes.
everything had to fall into place for them to
He's
happen.
had good drives,
So
but it was usually the Sergio Perez experience where you qualify badly and you overtake a couple of midfield cars and then you get into a good position.
yeah,
Like
and it's just that's the thing, that this is something I've mentioned this before. I'm going to repeat myself, that when you look at the very best races by world champions, a lot of them are in the seasons where they didn't win the championship, when they're on the back foot and don't necessarily have the best car. But with Lewis, there haven't really been any standouts since 2022. There's been a lot of his very worst races actually in the past 4
yes,
seasons, and
the,
it's
the,
just not
this just
happening. Like,
this just yeah this just leads into my theory that he's been on the downturn in terms of form since 2019, and that we just didn't see it in 2019 through 21 because of the cars he was in.
and the teammate he had.
Yeah, we saw his mistakes, Brazil, that year, and Austria, and then his inconsistency. Like 2020, people act like that was his greatest season when it wasn't even close to being his greatest season because of all the errors he made.
And it was just
Um,
it's also because it was just no contest as well. Like,
mm,
to have literally the fastest car ever built and a teammate doing absolutely nothing and nobody else can touch it. I mean, Max, somehow he spent the whole season staring at their diffusers and keeping just outside DRS range of those two cars.
mm,
But yeah, that's the whole thing. And we saw this in 21, the first time he'd been challenged properly since 2016, where he also made a lot of errors. He again made lots of errors in 21.
yes,
Um, yeah, but he's washed, and he's 40 years old, so that's not exactly surprising.
yeah,
Number 8 is
He
not happening.
also has a he also has a 5 place grid penalty for
Yeah,
Monza. So
everyone
that's
forgot about
made
that. Yeah, everyone
yes.
forgot about that because that was before the race had even started. He was done. I mean, slowing for yellows on the formation lap. I was like, I didn't know we had yellows on the formation lap, to be
I'm
honest.
guessing I'm guessing it might be permanent yellow flags just so there's no dipshittery involved.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's just a general thing. I mean, there are examples in the past of people being disqualified for overtaking on the formation lap, but it doesn't happen very often.
yeah,
Um, what exactly? Normally, that means there's been an incident on the formation lap you didn't slow down for, but sure. And again, it's
So
like,
I read the stewards document. I don't know why there were the yellow flags. Maybe there were marshals on track to pick up some pieces of whatever. Maybe there was they had to pick up an animal because another fox ran on the track during the formation laps. But anyway, there were double waved yellow flags, and the stewards recriminated that Hamilton saw the double yellow flags and didn't slow down enough. And so in the stewards document, they say, we talked with Hamilton. He said he slowed down, and we acknowledge that. We acknowledge he slowed down, but we feel he didn't slow down enough. And normally this penalty for not slowing down is a 10 place grid penalty. But since we recognize he at least attempted to slow down, we decide this is only a 5 place grid penalty.
but for what incident? Because it's like, if it was just because it's the formation lap, it's like, well, as long as he doesn't overtake anyone, then he's done nothing wrong, and he hasn't gained any
He,
advantage from it.
for not slowing down with yellow flags,
Yeah, but it's like it's not again. It's like okay, there's yellows, but it's the same way that like Behrman's penalty in Monaco being really marginal. It's like it's red flags and you didn't slow down enough, or you overtook someone just as the red flag came. It's like okay, sure, but he was nowhere near the source of the red flag, so he's gained no advantage because it's practice. He hasn't suddenly learned some race-winning strategy from braking half a second later than he should, or something. He's nowhere near where the hazard is, so he's not putting anyone in danger. Like, what performance advantage have you gained from this? Nothing. And I can't believe I'm defending Lewis, but like, what did he gain from not slowing down enough for that? It doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't.
I think it's more a safety concern than an advantage concern.
But again, that's only an issue if there's marshals on the track, because if they're not, they're behind the fences and it's all fine. At which point you'll say, well, just racing itself presents a risk when they're driving a hell of a lot faster.
You are just the F1 equivalent of that Top Gear scene where it's like, no one working when they're at roadworks.
Oh yeah, it's just yeah. It's weird because we had the rules about jump starts and being out of position. When you watch races from the 70s and 80s, people would line up like miles behind their grid slots. They didn't care, and you would see people jumping starts all the time because they would hesitate and then move at the start of races, and it was just so much fuckery back then that no one thought about or whatever.
Anyway,
Yeah,
should
well,
we do tops and flops?
well, we haven't talked about Charles yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's cover him quickly. So yeah, he had some battles. I mean, we saw he probably was going to get penalised until he got taken out by Antonelli. But this is the other thing, actually, Lewis. And I did a hit tweet that said they can't even do Crashgate properly because he waited until the lap after Leclerc had pitted to then trigger a safety car. So if he'd done it a lap before, that would have been great for. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Leclerc he might have got ahead of George or gained a couple of places off of that. Like
He
it
was
could have helped him a
already
bit.
ahead of George.
It
At
could
the
have put him ahead of
start,
Hadjar, I guess, or
yes,
yeah.
that
But yeah,
could have been
he did
possible.
pass George at the start, didn't he? It might have helped him there, and maybe that would have kept him away from Antonelli, and he could have sneaked a podium at the end, just to twist the knife even more for Lewis. But that didn't happen. And then yeah, he gets taken out, and he was hovering on the banks by the track for ages. Like he had his phone with him, and I don't know if he was trying to listen to commentary, but he was like trying to embody kind of Senna Okayama and just sit trackside and watch the cars go round for ages.
But now I've gotta ask a question to both of you. Do you think he had the phone with himself already on the car, or do you think a team member brought the phone to him there where he was sitting?
I believe he went back to the paddock and then went back to his place on the dunes because he's not Santino Ferrucci. He's not going to drive with a phone in his car.
Why? It's just such a weird thing to do. I mean, because he was on the outfield, so he'd have had to have unless there are tunnels, he would have had to take a really obtuse route to get back to the paddock and then get there again. It was just he just hovered there for ages, and you could see he's wearing a Whoop. So because I've got one that he obviously uses that when he's racing as well. But yeah, there was a lot of that because him, Lando, and Lewis were all moping by the side of the track and doing a we have Hacken and Monza 99 at home kind of stunt. Yeah, but that was funny. So they've had double retirements. I mean, the first double retirement caused by an accident, I had said Singapore 2017, but of course Brazil 2019 would be that for Ferrari. Yeah, it happened. I mean, God, if this had happened next week, that would have been very very interesting. But we already know that Lewis is out of it, basically having that 5-place penalty. But as it's Monza, they'll bring their souped up engines, they'll bring extra thin rear wings and some vaguely competent strategists as well, and try and cook up a storm. So yeah, tops and flops. Tops, Piastri, Hadjar, and I guess George. I don't know.
I'll go for Hadjar, Behrman, and Stroll.
I will stick to the top three.
Boring.
Piastri, Verstappen, Hadjar. But I just don't think there is any other driver who got a good result just out of his own competency other than these three. Others got luck somewhere along the way. Stroll, Berman, they got lucky. Albon, as I said, he got lucky after the good start. Everyone who finished further behind messed up something. See Sainz and Lawson. Then there was, I think the top three are the only ones who finished top three, really. because they
They're,
deserved
they're
it.
the only ones that nothing happened to them. Basically, they just drove and it was all fine.
They just didn't make a
Um,
mistake, nor got lucky to achieve their positions.
Yeah. Flops. Lewis, Antonelli, and Norris's title chances.
I'll go for Lewis, Antonelli, and Alpine strategists.
Bortoleto, because, well, he finished basically last. So Bortoleto, Antonelli, and Hamilton.
So yeah, that was quite a good way to kick off the second half of the season after quite a long summer break. Monza next week, I'm looking forward to that because everyone loves Monza. The races, I mean, last year was a fantastic race, very strategy. All eyes are going to be on Ferrari, as you would expect. And yeah, it should be a good one as we're getting closer. Because actually, that was another thing they kept saying that McLaren could have clinched the constructors' title at this race, but I looked at the points and I don't think that if they got a 1-2, I don't think they could have. They're still way off what they need. And I saw that and I was thinking, really, with 9 races to go, that's a bit early. Like Mercedes were nowhere near that early with their constructors' titles.
But then again, back then there wasn't there were concrete second fastest teams usually, whereas
Yes,
now
and
the second best team isn't the second best team.
there are like 3 teams which are second fastest, and also all of them have second driver syndrome. So
Yes.
that's probably making a difference. Even though McLaren don't have quite as many 1-2 finishes as you would think, but yeah.
Shit drivers.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, Monza next week, and we'll all look forward to that one, I'm sure. You've been listening to the DRS Train podcast. We're on YouTube and Spotify, and you can find us on Instagram and X at the DRS Train podcast. Become a channel member to get special perks, and you can join our current members, Birok Toshgun, Chris O'Dea, and Blue Guy. Stay safe. Make sure you tune in for the next episode, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.